back, I had him in 243. I had him in 95 before that, and then I had him 243. He had come to COCC, he had 2 terrible terms, had a terrible time adjusting to college, tanked both terms, basically got like F's and D's for the first 2 terms. Figured stuff out, and then had 2 straight years of awesome runs, just A's, high B student, just totally kicking butt. But his GPA, because of those first 2 terms, never recovered. He was applying for a college scholarship, a study abroad type thing, and he couldn't get in because of his GPA. His GPA was just too low to get in. And he came to me, he's like, dude, I know this is statistical. Can you paint this to the selection committee in a way that makes them believe that a GPA is not the best indicator? I'm like, hell yeah, let's sit down and do this. So I got all of his data from all of, I think it was 8 terms at that point. And I sat down and I figured out 2 other, besides GPA, I did GPM1 and GPM2, grade point median and a grade point mode. His grade point mode was almost a 4, because if you ignore those 2 terms that he screwed up and look at the 6 terms that he did great, the most frequently occurring grade in his now, even weighted for credits, was an A. So basically he's got a 4.0 grade point mode, and his median was essentially the same thing too. And what was so cool is within a week of them getting the letter, he got the scholarship, which was totally cool. Now, correlation doesn't imply causation, but it makes me think that maybe we should have another measure besides GPA.
So GPA.
We should have GPA. Just have a second measure in there. Huh?
Are you like pushing for that, or what?
I would never fly, dude. It's academia. But I'm saying, I propose we should do something like that, because when something happens and you have a bad term, your GPA does not recover quickly. And for those of you that are at a school like COCC for 2 years, that's not a lot of time to get the recovery process going. So a GPM might be a way to kind of look for it. So just throw that out there. It helped him get his scholarship, which was fantastic. And averages are great, except when they're not. I mean, that's basically what it is. Averages are great unless you have skewed data, and then they're misleading. So Chris, once again, we answered your question. It was a great question earlier. But once again, we answered.
Now I like modes better.
Well, did you notice? Chris just said he likes modes better. Did you notice that no matter what the shape of the data, the mode was always reliable?
Yeah.
You notice that? Yeah. It's the least computational, and there's reasons we don't use it inferentially. But it's it's always there. It's always there, and it never does a bad job of targeting what's going on. Yeah, man, modes are good. Modes are good. All right, I want to show you one more instance of weighted means in your daily lives. So, how many of you have used Amazon to either purchase something or to read reviews before purchasing something? Everybody use it for that? Yeah, bunch of us, right? I love shopping locally, but it's also nice to see what products are out there, to see what the best product is. Sometimes they don't carry it in your store, but they'll order it for you. So here's an example of an Amazon review. One of my favorite bands of all time, Refused. This is just, I pulled this from about a year, maybe a year or 2 ago. It was their album, The Shape of Punk to Come. And you can give 5-star ratings, 1 to 5 stars. You know. So, and this is what happened when I took the screenshot on Amazon, let's say a year and a half, 2 years ago. 100 people had voted a 5-star rating. 8 of them had voted a 4-star rating, 2 3-star ratings, 2 2-star ratings, and 3 1-star ratings. You guys see all that on the left-hand side over there? Yeah, you're probably used to seeing this if you've used Amazon or Yelp or any other, any other kind of online rating system. So, on median, how did Refused do? Assuming, of course, that these stars mean something, that 5 is better than 4, 4 is better than 3, and 3 is better. So on median, what's Refused's average median number of stars? It's got to be 5. If you do your chopping,
yeah.
I mean, there's 3 and 2, there's 15 non-5s and 100 5. So remove 15 of those 100, there's 85 more 5. So the median is definitely 5. What's the most, Corey?
That's 5 stars.
The most is 5 stars, so we have the mode is 5. What's the average? Nice. The average is not 5, the average is slightly below, because the average is going to chase the tail of that distribution. You have to kind of turn your head sideways to see the histogram. But here's your histogram right here. It's definitely skewed. It's highly exponentially skewed, which means the average is going to want to head this way. Not far. It's about 4.7 if I remember correctly. But the average is not 3. Some people will look at that and go, well, God, the average is 3. I mean, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 is 15 divided by 5 is 3. Yes, I'm not doubting that math. That's correct. But that's the wrong math if you're talking about the average number of stars. Because by doing that, that means there were 5 votes cast, 1 for each number of stars. That's not what happened. There were 100 votes here. So the average does get pulled towards the tail a little bit. thing that's a little bit more, be careful of when you're looking at reviews like this. I wouldn't stop just at these reviews, just at that. This is an example of student evals. This would be like looking at just those numbers that I get on my evals. What else is also very helpful with these reviews? Comments. All those comments. Some people put ridiculously detailed comments, and I try to do the same thing if I have a product that either works or doesn't work.
Yeah.
But you have to be careful. You do have to be careful with the comments even. And why is that, Chris? Go ahead. No, go ahead. What were you going to say? What were you going to say?
I was going to say Amazon won't even let you leave a review now unless you leave written comments. You can't.
Oh, you can't just go in and drop.
It'll say put right here. You can't review it.
I wonder if that changes the data for the better or for the worst. And I would have no idea. Nobody would have any idea of knowing that. It's just one of those questions that we can't answer. I was just going to say, what would you have to be concerned about if you were doing this kind of data analysis? If you were trying to use the comments, for example, for a meaningful, Tabitha, go ahead.
I was going to say they can't vote 0.
They can't vote 0, which a lot of people, I actually read one today for bike lights, and the guy said, if I could get this -2 stars, I would. I'm like, why not -5? Like, why -2? Why stop there? Negative infinity. Yeah, so you're limited from 1 to 5, but that's a scalar, I think. I'm more concerned with the data itself. Who leaves reviews?
Only people who are really happy or really mad.
That's what I've noticed. I've noticed people either pissed, more so than unpissed, or super stoked. Like this is a perfect example of that. Most of these 100 people are fans of the band, myself included. I'm one of those 100. I was like, hell yeah, and I talk about why these guys are awesome and underappreciated, why they shouldn't have broken up. And then it's like, how valuable is that data point? I like the band. I'm hardly objective. And then you got these guys down there, like, these guys suck. They sound like a cheap Mars Volta knockoff. Blah, nice screaming. Why don't you sing in Swedish? Blah. So I mean, like, you have to ask yourself how valid the data actually is. Yes, we can get all these numbers from the data, but you have to ask yourself how valid it is. That's why the comments are good too. You can kind of tell the ones that are knockoff fanboy comments versus, okay, so the tempo changes were very cool. The mixing could have been better, but and you're like, okay, this person actually spent some time. Bike headlights. One of the bike headlights was 1,000 lumens, and one of the reports said I used my blah 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 ohmometer, and it was 509 lumens. I'm like, holy crap! Okay, I'm going to read this guy's review because obviously he's got equipment that he's actually measuring the light with, you know. So I'm going to check this guy's review out so you can kind of get a feel for it. So, cool, makes sense.
I think people have too much time on their hands.
That's what I
It depends, though. Suppose that guy's an engineer. Or a tech.
That's just the way his brain works.
Or a lot of those lights, I was looking at are used by tactical
like,
marksmen.
This seems dull.
I mean, this seems dull. That's
yeah,
okay.
like the way I'd be like, this seems dull. I'm not gonna go get like a.
Totally fine. Apples, oranges, vanilla chocolate. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons as to why this might seem dull to you, but there might be some other review that you would be interested in, Raphael.
Right.
I'm just saying, across the board, you can get good data from this, but it might be included by the not so good.
Yeah, if we were talking about Walmart, he'd be all about it.
Oh yeah.
I learned that. It's all Raphael.
I'm here all night.
So basically, this kind of review, rating system, star system, your GPA, that key data group, they're all examples of weighted averages. They're not going away. We're going to keep them all term long because they're hugely important. Very rarely do you get raw data in the world. You much more often get group data. So here's an example of group data. Actually, that's a statement. The group data is coming below. For the Bend Chamber of Commerce, average annual snowfall in Bend, 33.8 inches. I closed this section with some misuses of central tendency. Okay, so the average annual snowfall is 33.8 inches. I believe it. I believe it. And you guys are going to analyze this later on in this course. I actually have maybe 110 years or so worth of snowfall data that I've been tracking. Well, not myself. I've got a repository plus I've been tracking for about 5 years myself. That's what I've got so far. That's a dot plot showing inches of snow. Each snowflake is 1 year. So there was 1 year where it was between 90 and 100. 1 year between 80 and 90. This is in town, in the town of Bend. 4 years between 70 and 80. 3 years between 60 and 70 and so forth and so on.
Why didn't I hear those years?
Well, you probably did. What was it was never that bad. 93, 91, somewhere in there. Corey, you remember?
Yeah.
That was, I believe, the one on the far right. 92, 93, that was that far right snowflake. A couple years ago, you could ski Pilot Butte. It snowed so much in town, you could actually ski on the view, which is really cool. But describe that distribution of data. If you had to pick words that we've talked about today to describe that graph, I would definitely call it skewed, huh? It's not symmetric. So since it's skewed, should we be talking about an average necessarily?
No.
Where does the average chase in skewed data? It chases the tail. It's going to head this way. So in other words, you might be getting an inflated version of what happens annually in Bend by looking at an average. Does that make sense? Why would they put the average on the Bend Chamber of Commerce website? Because they want to get people to come here and ski. It's a Chamber of Commerce. They want to sell things like ski passes and ski rentals and beer, apparently, in Bend. We just opened the 64th brewery in Bend. We got to go tell them to get this. So, again, this is one that you might not, this one is, I'm sure, one you've heard a ton.
Oh, yeah.
Not only Bend, also Tucson, also Phoenix, also San Diego. A lot of towns use this magical 300-day, sunny day average.
Oh, I heard it when I moved here.
I don't know where it comes from, but this is the closest I've gotten to kind of quantifying. Same Chamber of Commerce website. Same Chamber of Commerce website. Go ahead and read that.
I look outside, actually.
What is it doing outside? I checked earlier, it was cloudy.
It doesn't know what it wants to do.
It's bluish.
It's totally cloudy.
It's just, which means unpredictable.
Bend's green.
All seasons in one day. Exactly. So do you see the 300 days? I see 158
No, it's not nice.
plus 105. That's like 260. Many of the remaining days, 40. There's 300. Done. 300 sunny days. The problem is, define a clear day. Define a partly cloudy day or mostly sunny day. What does totally cloudy mean? How many times have you been out at the mountain, the sucker hole opens up and then closes back up again, and for those beautiful 5 minutes you're like, oh, and then it closes back up again, the wind picks up, blowing 212, wind chill, your nose falls off. But do we count that as a sunny day? Do we count that as a partly sunny day? I don't know what those things are counted as. But it's the Bend Chamber of Commerce. They want you to come and live here, obviously. This guy had a lot to say about that. It's one last little misuse, and I'm going to set you loose with another example.
That's awesome.
Anybody recognize that? One of my, yeah, George Carlin, Chris Collier. Rest in peace, George Carlin. I wish he had used the word median instead of average, because he's not exactly correct with average. But you know, average is funnier because he's George. He's George, and he was wonderful. And he should have been president, but he wasn't. But the point is that there are many, many ways that you can use or misuse the idea of central tendency. Many, many, many ways. What we've done today, and we're going to do a little bit more here in the last couple minutes, I have a little kind of open-ended activity for us to start, is quantifiably and computationally get them. What I want to spend a lot of time doing in this class is asking the questions, should we? That's kind of the thing. Some of you have either read or seen the book or movie Jurassic Park. And a theme overriding that book is just because you can do something, should you do it? I mean, that's kind of like a theme overriding that book, which I thought was a really, really clever theme to put in a book like that. So here's a question I have for you guys to ponder. I'm going to give you 2 students' performances on 5 assessments. Bert
And Ernie?
and Ernie.
Awesome.
So these guys took 5 assessments. Bert got 100, a 68, an 82, a 94, and a 61.
Wow. He's all over.
Ernie got an 81, a 79, an 83, an 82, and an 80.
Ernie's nice and steady.
Yeah.
I want you to tell me who the better student is.
Ernie.
And you also have to define what better is. So you have to tell me how you're defining better.
I say.
And you also have to quantitatively back it up with some kind of measurements.
Okay.
So I want to vote for who the better student is. And your answer might be that I can't tell the difference. That's also a possible answer. So you could say Bert's better, you could say Ernie's better, you could say they're both equally bad, they're both equally good, I can't decide, but quantitatively back up your response. Quantitatively back up your response. Take a few minutes right now. Don't do it quickly. I mean, take your time and think about what you're doing. You might want to use some of these center measures. You might want to invent a new one. You want to talk about something you might know about that we haven't talked about in class yet. Any of those things are fine. I'll clear some board space. Oh, and let me pause this too while you guys are working.